10 Ways to See the Forest for the Trees by David Russo. Chapter 1. Practice the 30,000-foot pause. In the rush of daily life, it's all too easy to become entangled in details. Emails, meetings, deadlines, and small problems can consume our attention to the point where the larger picture disappears. This is where the 30,000-foot pause comes in, a deliberate mental step back that allows us to see beyond the immediate chaos and gain perspective. Much like a pilot ascending to a higher altitude to see the layout of the land below, pausing to look at the bigger picture helps us understand patterns, priorities, and possibilities that remain hidden when we focus too closely on the trees. The essence of this practice is simple. Stop, breathe, and ask yourself, if I zoomed out, what would this situation look like from above? That single question shifts your focus from the granular to the global. For example, imagine a manager overwhelmed by numerous project tasks. From the ground level, every task seems urgent. Every minor setback feels like a crisis. But by stepping back mentally, or even physically, the manager can see how each task contributes to the broader objective, distinguishing what truly requires immediate attention from what can wait. The 30,000-foot pause is not just a metaphorical exercise. It can be practiced in concrete ways. One approach is to set aside a few minutes at the beginning or end of the day to review your tasks, decisions, or challenges from a broader perspective. Journaling questions such as, how does this task align with my long-term goals? Or what impact will this decision have 6 months from now? Can guide your reflection. Another method is to step away from your workspace entirely. Take a short walk, gaze out of a window, or even spend a moment in meditation. Physical distance often triggers mental distance, giving your brain the clarity it needs to reframe complex situations. Psychologists and business leaders alike emphasize the value of this mental pause. Cognitive research shows that when people are too focused on minute details, their problem-solving abilities narrow. They fixate on what is immediately in front of them, often overlooking alternative solutions or larger strategic opportunities. By consciously creating a zoomed-out mindset, you allow your brain to process information more holistically, recognize patterns, and make decisions that are aligned with your long-term vision. The 30,000-foot pause also fosters emotional resilience. When immersed in the minutiae, small setbacks can feel catastrophic. But from a higher vantage point, problems appear smaller, temporary, and manageable. This shift not only improves decision-making but also reduces stress, allowing you to approach challenges with a calm and composed mindset. To integrate this practice into your life, start small. Before responding to a tricky email, before reacting to a sudden problem, or before committing to a new task, pause and ask yourself, will this matter in the bigger scheme of things? Over time, this habit trains your mind to automatically consider the broader perspective, turning the 30,000-foot pause from a conscious exercise into an intuitive skill. Ultimately, practicing the 30,000-foot pause is about cultivating perspective. It is the first step in seeing the forest for the trees, a way to navigate complexity without being swallowed by it. By stepping back, breathing, and observing from above, we not only make better decisions, but also align our daily actions with our most meaningful goals. In the chapters that follow, we will explore additional tools and strategies to reinforce this practice and ensure that clarity and foresight become a natural part of your approach to life and work. Chapter 2. Define the North Star. In the journey of life, work, or personal growth, it is easy to get lost in a maze of tasks, obligations, and distractions. Without a clear guiding principle, decisions become reactive rather than intentional, and energy is often scattered across too many directions. This is where the concept of a North Star becomes essential, a single, overarching goal or purpose that provides direction and alignment. Just as sailors once navigated by the literal North Star in the night sky, individuals and organizations can use their metaphorical North Star to maintain focus, prioritize effectively, and measure progress against a meaningful target. Defining your North Star begins with reflection. Ask yourself, what is the one objective that, if achieved, would make all other efforts meaningful? For some, this could be a professional milestone, such as building a successful business or creating a body of work that leaves a legacy. For others, it may be a personal value, such as cultivating deep relationships, fostering personal growth, or contributing positively to the community. The key is specificity combined with significance. Your North Star should be clear enough to guide daily choices, yet broad enough to encompass the long-term vision you aspire to achieve. Once identified, your North Star acts as a filter for decision-making. Every task, project, or commitment can be measured against it. For example, if your North Star is to become a leader in sustainable business practices, you can evaluate opportunities based on whether they align with sustainability goals. Tasks that directly contribute to this mission are prioritized, while those that distract or dilute your efforts are minimized or delegated. This filtering process transforms overwhelming complexity into manageable focus, helping you stay on course even when the day-to-day noise threatens to pull you off track. A North Star also provides motivation and resilience. When challenges arise, or when progress feels slow, it serves as a reminder of the bigger picture. Consider an author working on a lengthy manuscript. At times, individual chapters may feel tedious or uninspiring. By keeping the North Star in mind, the desire to share a transformative story with the world, the author can push through temporary frustration, maintain consistency, and retain sight of the ultimate goal. This long-term perspective prevents small setbacks from derailing overall progress. Importantly, defining a North Star does not mean rigidly adhering to a single path. Flexibility and adaptation are still necessary as circumstances evolve. The North Star is not a checklist of steps, but a compass that ensures every adjustment, detour, or experiment ultimately contributes to your overarching aim. It allows for innovation and creativity while maintaining coherence and purpose, preventing efforts from becoming scattered or aimless. In practice, integrating your North Star into daily life can take several forms. Visual reminders, such as a written statement, a vision board, or a mantra, can reinforce focus. Regular reflection sessions, perhaps weekly or monthly, can assess whether current activities align with the North Star. Mentorship or accountability relationships can also help maintain clarity, providing external perspectives that confirm whether you are on track. The key is to make the North Star visible and actionable, rather than an abstract idea that exists only in thought. Ultimately, defining the North Star is about cultivating intentionality. It transforms vague ambition into concrete guidance, allowing you to navigate complexity without losing direction. When paired with other strategies, such as the 30,000-foot pause from the previous chapter, it empowers you to see not just the forest, but the path through it. With a clear North Star, decisions become purposeful, priorities become transparent, and every step you take contributes meaningfully to the life or work you aspire to create. Chapter 3. Limit detail overload. In today's fast-paced world, information surrounds us on every side. Emails, reports, notifications, and meetings compete for attention, creating a constant stream of details that demand mental bandwidth. While attention to detail is often celebrated as a strength, an excess of information can overwhelm even the most organized individual. This is where the principle of limiting detail overload becomes essential, focusing intentionally on a small set of critical inputs rather than attempting to process everything at once. By simplifying what you attend to, you free cognitive resources, reduce stress, and make better decisions. The first step in limiting detail overload is identifying what truly matters. Not every piece of data, task, or metric carries equal weight. For instance, a business leader might receive dozens of reports daily, but only a few key performance indicators, KPIs, directly affect strategic outcomes. Similarly, in personal life, countless minor chores and obligations compete for attention, but only a select few actions, like maintaining health, nurturing relationships, or managing finances, have long-term impact. The process of prioritization, then, is not about ignoring details entirely, but about recognizing which ones are truly meaningful. Once critical priorities are clear, the next step is simplification. This might involve creating a short list of 3 to 5 core metrics, tasks, or projects at any given time. Doing so ensures focus on high-impact activities without becoming entangled in minutiae. For example, instead of tracking 10 different social media analytics metrics, a marketing manager might focus on 2 or 3 that best measure engagement and conversion. By reducing the clutter, decisions become faster, and energy is directed toward what advances overarching goals. Technology, while helpful, can contribute significantly to detail overload. Notifications, emails, and task reminders constantly pull attention in multiple directions. To counteract this, consider intentionally limiting inputs. Mute non-essential notifications, batch check emails at set intervals, and establish boundaries for meetings or calls. Each choice that reduces unnecessary detail opens mental space for reflection and strategic thinking. Paradoxically, by attending to less, we often accomplish more. Another strategy is grouping and categorizing details. Even when faced with numerous tasks, arranging them into themes or clusters helps the brain process information more efficiently. For instance, rather than treating 20 small tasks as separate items, grouping them into categories like urgent, important but not urgent, and delegate allows for more structured decision-making. This practice minimizes the feeling of chaos and provides clarity about where effort is best invested. Limiting detail overload also has emotional benefits. When every small issue is magnified, stress and anxiety naturally rise. By consciously reducing the number of details we engage with, we create a calmer mental environment. This space allows for higher-order thinking, better problem-solving, and more thoughtful responses instead of reactive decision-making. In essence, mental decluttering is not just practical, it is restorative. It is important to recognize that limiting detail overload is an ongoing practice, not a one-time solution. Priorities shift, new information arrives, and unexpected challenges emerge. The key is to continually assess which details deserve attention and which can be postponed, delegated, or ignored. Regular reflection, paired with the North Star defined in Chapter 2 and the 30,000-foot pause from Chapter 1, ensures that focus remains aligned with long-term goals rather than being derailed by the flood of daily minutiae. In conclusion, limiting detail overload is about cultivating clarity amidst complexity. It is the conscious act of deciding where to direct attention, allowing the important to rise above the noise. By simplifying inputs, focusing on high-impact tasks, and grouping information effectively, we regain control over our cognitive space. This practice not only improves decision-making and productivity, but also strengthens our ability to see the forest rather than getting lost among the trees. In the following chapter, we will explore how adding the lens of time can further enhance perspective, allowing us to evaluate decisions and challenges not just in the moment, but across months and years. Chapter 4. Let time sharpen your perspective. We often judge problems and choices through the narrow window of the present moment. When our attention is fixed on the now, difficulties feel heavier, risks seem bigger, and decisions appear more consequential than they really are. One of the most effective ways to gain clarity is to stretch that window, looking at situations not just as they appear today, but as they might unfold over months, years, or even decades. When we allow time to guide our perspective, we step back far enough to see patterns, priorities, and possibilities that aren't visible up close. This mindset begins with a simple question: how will this matter to me in a year? In 5 years? In 10? Shifting into a long-term frame helps filter out what's temporary from what's truly important. Imagine someone weighing a lucrative but high-pressure job. In the present, the salary shines brightly while the potential burnout looms large. But by projecting forward, considering future fulfillment, health, and professional direction, the decision becomes less about immediate reward and more about long-term alignment with personal values and ambitions. Thinking across time also softens emotional reactions. Short-term setbacks naturally stir frustration or worry, but when placed in a larger timeline, these bumps often look smaller and more manageable. This distance encourages resilience. Instead of reacting impulsively, we learn to respond with steadiness, understanding that most obstacles are chapters, not the whole story. A practical way to apply this perspective is through structured reflection. Take a current issue and imagine its impact across different time spans: 1 month, 6 months, a year, and beyond. Ask how each option shapes your future growth, relationships, and aspirations. This exercise naturally highlights decisions with lasting value and reduces the weight of short-lived concerns. Time as a lens is invaluable for long-range planning as well. Whether leading a team, launching a business, or pursuing creative work, long-term thinking uncovers trends, surfaces opportunities, and anchors daily actions to broader aims. Even small decisions, what to focus on today, which skills to build, how to budget time, become clearer when viewed through their future consequences. This perspective also reveals the power of compounding. Tiny, consistent efforts, learning a little each day, nurturing connections, saving steadily, quietly accumulate extraordinary results over time. Likewise, small unchecked habits can grow into significant barriers. Recognizing these trajectories helps us make intentional choices that build toward the outcomes we want and avoid the futures we don't. Using time as a lens doesn't mean dismissing the present. Immediate needs still matter, and short-term action remains essential. Instead, this practice helps balance the urgency of now with the wisdom of later. When combined with broad-view techniques like the 30,000-foot pause, identifying a North Star, and managing detail overload, it becomes a powerful tool for seeing both the landscape and the trail ahead. In essence, widening our time horizon reshapes how we navigate decisions, challenges, and priorities. It cultivates patience, strategic thinking, and confidence in the path we're building. By intentionally using time to frame our choices, we ensure that today's actions support the life, work, and legacy we aim to create. The next chapter explores how creating systems, rather than simply completing tasks, can amplify this long-term clarity and keep meaningful progress in motion. Chapter 5. Create systems, not just to-dos. It is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that success comes from completing an endless list of tasks. To-do lists, while helpful in the short term, often address only surface-level productivity. They focus on isolated actions rather than sustainable progress. In contrast, creating systems, structured processes, habits, and routines provides a framework that consistently produces results over time. Systems shift the focus from short-term activity to long-term effectiveness, ensuring that you are not just busy, but productive in meaningful ways. At its core, a system is a repeatable approach that drives desired outcomes without requiring constant decision-making. For instance, consider someone who wants to write a book. A task-oriented mindset might focus on finishing individual chapters or editing sections. While these steps are important, they are reactive, dependent on willpower and energy each day. A systems-oriented approach, on the other hand, involves creating a daily writing habit, setting up a workflow for research, and establishing checkpoints for revision. By focusing on the process rather than the isolated tasks, the individual is more likely to maintain consistent progress and eventually achieve the larger goal. Systems also have a compounding effect. Small, repeated actions embedded in a system accumulate over time, often producing results that far exceed those achieved by sporadic bursts of effort. For example, a professional who commits to a habit of networking for just 15 minutes a day may, over the course of a year, build a robust network of meaningful contacts. Similarly, someone who sets aside 10 minutes daily for reflection and planning may significantly improve decision-making and personal growth over months. The power of systems lies in their ability to transform ordinary, incremental actions into extraordinary outcomes. Another advantage of systems is that they reduce mental load. When tasks are approached as part of a system, decisions become automatic rather than constant. Habits, routines, and structured workflows free cognitive resources for higher-level thinking. Returning to the writing example, the writer who follows a system does not waste energy deciding each day whether to write or edit. The system provides clarity and direction. This reduces stress, prevents decision fatigue, and allows focus on creative or strategic challenges rather than on repetitive choices. Building effective systems requires identifying repeatable patterns in your work or life that produce value. Begin by asking, which actions, if done consistently, would produce the results I want? Next, design a process that makes those actions habitual and manageable. Systems can be simple: a morning routine that sets the tone for the day, a weekly review of priorities, or a structured workflow for completing tasks. They can also be more complex, involving tools, templates, or collaborative processes within a team. The key is that the system is purposeful, repeatable, and aligned with overarching goals. It is important to note that systems are not rigid. Flexibility and iteration are essential. As circumstances change, systems must evolve to remain effective. A system that worked 6 months ago may require adjustments to maintain efficiency or relevance. By regularly evaluating and refining systems, you ensure that they continue to serve their intended purpose rather than becoming stale or counterproductive. Creating systems also encourages long-term thinking and sustainability. Unlike to-do lists, which focus on immediate completion, systems focus on establishing structures that consistently produce results, even when motivation fluctuates. They create resilience against the unpredictable nature of life and work, ensuring that progress continues regardless of external challenges or internal distractions. In conclusion, focusing on systems rather than isolated tasks transforms the way we approach work, projects, and personal growth. Systems provide clarity, consistency, and compounding benefits, allowing us to achieve significant outcomes while reducing mental strain. By designing repeatable processes aligned with your North Star, integrating them into daily routines, and iteratively improving them over time, you create a framework that enables sustainable progress. Systems allow us to rise above the noise of daily tasks and see the bigger picture, the forest, while steadily moving forward toward meaningful goals. Chapter 6. Bring in fresh eyes. One of the simplest yet most underused ways to regain perspective is to let other people look at what you're doing. When we're absorbed in a demanding project, tangled in a personal challenge, or lost in a creative pursuit, our awareness narrows. We start missing obvious cues, reinforcing old assumptions, and clinging to familiar habits. Inviting fresh eyes, asking for feedback, opinions, or an outside viewpoint, shines light on what our own perspective can't catch. It helps us understand the larger landscape by revealing patterns, blind spots, and opportunities that blend into the background when we're too close to the work. The power of outside eyes comes from their distance. People who aren't entangled in our emotions or routines see things we overlook. A mentor, teammate, friend, or even a neutral observer can point out issues we're too invested to notice. A product designer, for instance, may be convinced that a certain feature is indispensable, only to learn that real users find it irrelevant or confusing. External input can save time, sharpen ideas, and prevent missteps. Often the problem isn't a lack of skill. It's simply that we're standing too close to notice what's right in front of us. Seeking outside perspectives also strengthens our thinking by putting our assumptions under a microscope. When we request feedback, we expose our reasoning to constructive challenge. Asking questions like, "What am I overlooking?" or "Is there another way to approach this?" invites curiosity and critique. In doing so, we uncover hidden details, stimulate new ideas, and push past narrow focus. Exposure to diverse viewpoints makes our solutions broader, sturdier, and more innovative. There are many practical ways to bring in fresh eyes. Formal tactics include expert consultations, peer reviews, or scheduled feedback cycles. More casual options might involve informal conversations, brainstorming with a colleague, or asking a friend to walk through your logic with you. Even explaining your thought process out loud to someone, without requesting input, can reveal contradictions or unclear reasoning. The essential element is intention. Actively seeking viewpoints beyond your own rather than assuming clarity will appear on its own. Fresh eyes become even more critical when the stakes rise. Leaders, entrepreneurs, and creatives frequently make choices that influence people, resources, and long-term outcomes. By involving others, they lower the chance of costly errors and see potential consequences earlier. A founder preparing to launch a product, for example, might pull in feedback from advisors, teammates, and potential customers to uncover gaps in strategy or execution before committing significant funds. Collaboration increases confidence, foresight, and the chances of a successful result. Of course, opening yourself to outside input requires humility. Honest feedback, especially when critical, can sting. It may challenge your pride, push against your assumptions, or force you to reevaluate plans you felt certain about. But that discomfort is what makes the practice transformative. Accepting external insights fosters growth, broadens self-awareness, and equips us to steer through complexity with greater agility. Fresh eyes also reveal patterns that disappear when we're caught in the weeds. A manager might only recognize recurring workflow issues after discussing them with a peer. A novelist might only spot narrative inconsistencies once a reader points them out. These observations provide a higher-level understanding, helping us see systems rather than scattered problems. In the end, inviting fresh eyes is a foundational habit for gaining perspective and rising above the noise. By welcoming other viewpoints, we gain objectivity, challenge entrenched thinking, and spot themes we couldn't detect alone. This practice cultivates humility, sharper judgment, and freedom from tunnel vision. When paired with strategies like zooming out, defining your guiding direction, and reducing detail overload, external feedback becomes a powerful instrument for clarity and growth. In the next chapter, we'll explore how grouping information into meaningful themes further reveals the structure and hidden order within complex situations. Chapter 7. Group information into themes. When faced with a complex problem, a flood of tasks, or a vast amount of information, our brains can quickly become overwhelmed. Each detail seems separate, urgent, or confusing, making it difficult to identify patterns or prioritize effectively. One of the most powerful ways to regain clarity and see the bigger picture is by grouping information into themes. By categorizing related items, we move from a chaotic jumble of details to an organized structure, allowing the forest, the overarching patterns, to emerge clearly from among the trees. Grouping information into themes is fundamentally about recognizing relationships and connections. For example, imagine a project manager tracking dozens of tasks across multiple teams. Viewed individually, each task might seem overwhelming or disconnected. However, by clustering tasks into themes such as marketing, development, client communications, or operations, the manager can identify which areas need the most attention, detect bottlenecks, and allocate resources more effectively. The act of categorization transforms scattered information into a coherent narrative, making it easier to see the strategic picture. This principle extends beyond work projects. In personal life, for instance, a person managing health, finances, relationships, and hobbies may feel pulled in many directions. By grouping related activities, daily exercise and nutrition under health, budgeting and investments under finances, and social events under relationships, it becomes possible to evaluate progress and identify gaps in a more structured way. The process reduces mental clutter, reveals priorities, and enables focused action where it matters most. There are several practical methods for grouping information into themes. One approach is visual organization. Tools like mind maps, Kanban boards, or simple lists can help cluster related items and make patterns visually apparent. Mind maps are especially useful for complex problems because they allow hierarchical organization, showing how smaller tasks or ideas relate to larger categories. Similarly, digital tools like project management apps or spreadsheets can enable tagging, filtering, and grouping of information, making it easier to identify connections at a glance. Another method is thematic questioning. Ask yourself, what categories naturally emerge from this set of tasks or ideas? Or which items share a common purpose, goal, or impact? Grouping by purpose rather than by superficial characteristics often reveals the deeper structure of the situation. For example, in a product development project, instead of organizing tasks by department, grouping them by stages, research, design, testing, and launch can highlight dependencies and workflow patterns that might otherwise remain invisible. Grouping information into themes also enhances decision-making and prioritization. Once items are categorized, it is easier to identify clusters that require immediate attention versus those that can be deferred. Patterns emerge that inform resource allocation, risk management, and strategic planning. For instance, a recurring theme of customer complaints about a particular feature may indicate a systemic issue requiring urgent resolution, while scattered minor concerns may be deprioritized. The thematic view thus provides a higher-level perspective, helping to see not only the forest but also its structure and health. In addition, thematic grouping fosters better communication and collaboration. When complex information is organized into clear categories, it is easier to share with others. Teams can align around key themes, discuss priorities efficiently, and avoid misinterpretation. For leaders and educators, grouping information into themes allows them to present concepts, strategies, or plans in a way that is intuitive and digestible for others, enhancing clarity and engagement. Finally, grouping information into themes supports continuous learning and improvement. By periodically reviewing themes, we can identify recurring patterns, successes, and failures. Over time, these insights help refine processes, prevent repeated mistakes, and inform better strategic decisions. This iterative understanding is critical for both personal growth and organizational effectiveness. In conclusion, grouping information into themes is a powerful strategy for managing complexity, reducing mental clutter, and revealing patterns that might otherwise remain hidden. It transforms scattered details into coherent structures, enabling clearer prioritization, decision-making, and communication. When combined with practices like the 30,000-foot pause, defining a North Star, and inviting outside eyes, thematic grouping allows us to see not just the forest, but also the pathways, connections, and dynamics within it. In the next chapter, we will explore how asking the question, "What actually matters here?" can further refine focus, eliminate noise, and highlight the most meaningful actions. Chapter 8. Ask what actually matters here. In a world overflowing with information, tasks, and competing priorities, it is all too easy to get caught up in activity without producing meaningful results. We can spend hours responding to emails, attending meetings, or tweaking minor details, only to realize at the end of the day that the work we did barely moves the needle. This is where the practice of asking, "What actually matters here?" becomes essential. By pausing to identify what truly drives impact, we cut through noise, reduce wasted effort, and focus on the actions that make a significant difference. The power of this question lies in its ability to force clarity. Many challenges appear urgent simply because they are visible or immediate, not because they are important. By stepping back and asking what really matters, we separate the trivial from the critical. For example, a manager might feel pressure to respond to every email within minutes. Yet by asking the key question, they may realize that only a handful of emails truly require timely attention, while the rest can be delegated, scheduled, or ignored. This simple act of discernment transforms how we spend our time, energy, and focus. Applying this principle starts with perspective. Combine it with strategies from previous chapters, like the 30,000-foot pause and long-term thinking, to assess tasks and decisions in context. When evaluating any action, ask, "Will this move me closer to my North Star?" Or, "Will this have a meaningful impact in the long run?" Actions that answer yes should be prioritized, while those that do not can be deprioritized or eliminated entirely. This disciplined approach ensures that attention is spent on high-value activities rather than reactive or low-impact tasks. Another practical method is to rank or score tasks based on impact. Create a simple matrix or scale to evaluate urgency versus importance. High-impact tasks that directly contribute to key goals occupy the top priority, while low-impact tasks, no matter how time-consuming or attention-grabbing, are placed lower. By visualizing priorities in this way, you can make better decisions quickly and avoid the trap of getting lost in busy work. Asking what truly matters also encourages reflection and self-awareness. It forces us to confront assumptions and examine motivations. Are we acting out of habit, social expectation, or fear of missing out? Or are our actions truly aligned with meaningful outcomes? This reflection helps reduce cognitive clutter and emotional distraction, allowing focus to rest on actions that genuinely advance goals. For instance, a student might spend hours on minor assignments simply because they are due soon, while ignoring projects that carry more weight in terms of learning or career development. By applying this principle, the student can redirect energy toward what truly matters for growth and long-term success. In organizational settings, this question drives strategic clarity. Leaders who consistently ask, "What actually matters here?" help teams focus on goals that create measurable results rather than scattered efforts. It fosters a culture of purpose, accountability, and efficiency, where energy is invested wisely and everyone understands the difference between critical priorities and secondary noise. Importantly, this principle is not about ignoring all small tasks. Some minor activities are necessary to maintain systems, relationships, or responsibilities. The key is discernment, ensuring that these tasks do not dominate attention at the expense of high-value work. By consciously filtering out the noise, we free mental bandwidth for creativity, strategic thinking, and problem solving, all of which have a lasting impact. In conclusion, asking what actually matters here is a powerful lens for focus, productivity, and clarity. It allows us to cut through the noise, prioritize effectively, and invest time and energy where it truly counts. When combined with practices like thematic grouping, inviting outside eyes, and viewing challenges across time, this question becomes a cornerstone for seeing the forest rather than getting lost in the trees. By consistently applying this principle, we ensure that our actions are meaningful, our decisions are aligned with purpose, and our efforts contribute to lasting progress. Chapter 9. Step physically away. Sometimes the simplest way to gain perspective is to create physical distance. When we are deeply immersed in a problem, project, or emotional situation, our minds can become trapped in a narrow, detail-focused view. The solution may be just out of reach, yet staying glued to the desk, screen, or situation prevents us from seeing it. Stepping physically away, whether through a walk, a change of environment, or even just looking out a window, can trigger mental clarity, refresh focus, and allow patterns and solutions to emerge that were previously invisible. The underlying principle is straightforward. The brain often solves problems better when given space. Cognitive science supports this idea through the concept of incubation. When we disengage from a problem temporarily, the subconscious mind continues processing it in the background. Often, insights arise during these periods of pause, when attention is relaxed rather than forced. A designer struggling with a layout might step outside for a coffee break and suddenly see a more elegant solution. A writer stuck on a sentence may have a breakthrough while taking a walk. Stepping away physically creates the conditions for the mind to work differently. Changing the environment amplifies this effect. Moving from a confined space to a more open setting, spending time in nature, or simply switching rooms can refresh attention and perspective. Physical cues, like sunlight, fresh air, or new surroundings, signal to the brain that it is time to reset. This change can disrupt repetitive thinking patterns, reduce mental fatigue, and encourage creative problem solving. Even short pauses, such as standing to stretch or gazing out a window, provide subtle but meaningful shifts in perspective. Stepping away also has emotional benefits. When stuck in the details, stress and frustration often accumulate, clouding judgment and narrowing focus. Physical distance creates emotional distance, helping reduce immediate tension and providing a calmer mental state for reassessment. Consider a manager overwhelmed by multiple project deadlines. Sitting at the desk, the pressure may feel crushing. Taking a brief walk outside allows the mind to decompress, making it easier to prioritize tasks, delegate effectively, and approach challenges rationally rather than reactively. Practical ways to incorporate stepping away include scheduling deliberate breaks during the day, practicing walking meetings, or establishing environments for reflection outside the usual workspace. Even micro breaks, such as standing, stretching, or walking to another room, can interrupt mental loops and provide fresh perspective. For creative work, longer breaks in new environments, such as a park or cafe, often spark insights that could not be forced under pressure. Stepping physically away also encourages metaphorical detachment, reinforcing other perspective-building practices, such as the 30,000-foot pause. By combining physical distance with mental reflection, we create a powerful dual approach. The body moves away from the immediate environment, while the mind steps back from details, assumptions, and habitual thought patterns. This combination often leads to breakthroughs that were otherwise inaccessible. Importantly, stepping away is not about avoidance or procrastination. It is an intentional strategy to create space for clarity, insight, and thoughtful action. When applied strategically, it enhances decision-making, creativity, and productivity. It also complements other practices such as thematic grouping and asking, what actually matters here? Reinforcing the ability to see patterns, prioritize effectively, and focus on meaningful outcomes. In conclusion, stepping physically away is a deceptively simple but profoundly effective method for gaining perspective. By creating both mental and physical distance from immediate concerns, we allow the brain to reset, insights to emerge, and clarity to return. Whether through short pauses, environment changes, or nature walks, This practice strengthens problem solving, reduces stress, and helps us see the bigger picture. In the next chapter, we will explore the final principle, embracing imperfect progress, which frees us from perfectionism and allows us to focus on meaningful direction rather than getting lost in microscopic flaws. Chapter 10. Embrace imperfect progress. Perfectionism is a subtle trap. At first, it may feel like a motivator, striving for flawless work, impeccable decisions, or the ideal outcome. Yet, in reality, perfectionism often paralyzes us. We hesitate to start projects, second-guess choices, and obsess over minor details that ultimately have little impact on the larger goal. The antidote to this trap is embracing imperfect progress, accepting that moving forward, even if the steps are not perfect, is more valuable than waiting for flawless conditions. Imperfect progress is rooted in the principle that action generates momentum. Waiting for perfect clarity, optimal timing, or flawless execution can delay progress indefinitely. Small, consistent steps, even if imperfect, accumulate over time, producing tangible results. For example, a writer may never feel a chapter is perfect, but by writing regularly and revising iteratively, the manuscript gradually improves. Similarly, an entrepreneur testing a new product learns more from early prototypes, customer feedback, and iterative changes than from endless planning in search of perfection. Progress, not perfection, is the engine of growth. This principle also shifts focus from fear to learning. When we embrace imperfection, mistakes are reframed as opportunities for improvement rather than failures. Each misstep provides data, insight, and experience that inform future actions. Consider a team launching a new marketing campaign. An initial iteration may not perform perfectly, but analyzing results, gathering feedback, and adjusting strategies leads to far greater success than waiting for a perfect launch that may never come. Imperfect progress encourages experimentation, adaptation, and resilience. Another benefit of embracing imperfect progress is that it reduces mental and emotional strain. Perfectionism creates unnecessary pressure, anxiety, and self-criticism. By accepting that excellence is a journey rather than a fixed standard, we free ourselves to take meaningful action without being bogged down by fear of making mistakes. This mindset fosters confidence, reduces procrastination, and encourages a focus on the forest, the overall direction, rather than becoming lost in the minutiae of the trees. Practically, embracing imperfect progress involves setting realistic standards and defining what good enough means for each stage of a project. For example, instead of trying to perfect a presentation on the first draft, aim to create a version that communicates the core ideas effectively, leaving room for refinement. Similarly, in personal development, focus on incremental improvements, learning a new skill one step at a time, rather than attempting mastery overnight. These small wins build momentum, reinforce motivation, and gradually compound into meaningful achievement. Importantly, embracing imperfect progress does not mean settling for mediocrity. It is not an excuse to avoid quality or responsibility. Rather, it is a strategic mindset that prioritizes forward movement and iterative improvement over unattainable perfection. By focusing on progress and alignment with the North Star, we ensure that effort is invested wisely, learning is continuous, and goals remain within reach. When combined with the other 9 principles, pausing to gain perspective, defining a North Star, limiting detail overload, viewing challenges through a temporal lens, creating systems, inviting outside eyes, grouping information into themes, asking what truly matters, and stepping physically away. Embracing imperfect progress completes the toolkit for seeing the forest. It allows us to move with confidence, make meaningful decisions, and maintain momentum, even in complex or uncertain situations. In conclusion, embracing imperfect progress is a mindset that prioritizes action, learning, and forward motion over the paralyzing pursuit of perfection. It frees us to take meaningful steps, iterate, and adapt, while maintaining focus on long-term goals and overall direction. By acknowledging that small, imperfect actions can lead to extraordinary results, we align our efforts with purpose, clarity, and resilience, finally seeing the forest for the trees in both our work and life.